My fiancée demanded a strict prenup to protect her future assets, or the wedding was off. I signed it without hesitation. 3 years later, I won the $5 million jackpot. When she asked for her share, I pointed to the clause she wrote herself. Her lawyer was speechless. That was the moment I realized everything I'd been blind to for years. I remember the first time Claire mentioned the prenup. We were sitting at a small cafe near the park. The sun was setting, casting warm orange light through the windows, and I was savoring a cup of coffee. It was just a casual conversation, or so I thought, until she slid the folder across the table. "We need to talk," she said, her tone serious. At first, I thought maybe she was pregnant, or maybe she wanted to talk about kids, but no. "I want a prenup," she said, looking me straight in the eyes. Her hands, usually so poised, were tense, fingers lightly tapping on the folder as if she was bracing for something big. I looked at her, puzzled. "A prenup? Claire, we've been dating for 2 years now. Are you sure about this?" I couldn't hide the confusion in my voice. I was still processing everything. We had built something real, or at least that's what I thought. She nodded, her expression firm. "I need to protect my future, Jack. My condo, my savings, my inheritance. Everything I've worked for." She paused. "And I think it's only fair. You should want to protect your future too, right?" I glanced at the folder she'd pushed toward me. It looked thick, filled with legal jargon that was way over my head. My stomach tightened. "I don't have much to protect," I said, trying to smile. I couldn't help it. It felt ridiculous. My Honda Civic, which was already aging, and my savings, barely more than a couple of $100. My life was simple, unremarkable. Claire, on the other hand, had a career in pharmaceutical sales, and she owned her condo outright, thanks to an inheritance from her grandmother. But there was no joking in her eyes. She wasn't kidding. I was staring at something serious, something bigger than I had imagined. "I'll sign whatever you need," I said, still trying to process. "It's your money, your assets, I've got nothing to lose." Her eyes softened for a moment, but then her face hardened again. "We're in this together. But I want to protect my assets. We're marrying, not merging everything. It's smart planning." Her mother had always been there for these sorts of conversations. She was the one who pushed the idea, the one who helped Claire draft this. I felt uncomfortable. It wasn't that I didn't trust her. It was more that something didn't feel right. But there I was, in love with this woman, trying to understand why it felt like I was signing away any claim to anything of value. The lawyer she had hired was a man I'd never met before, but he smiled reassuringly at me when I sat down with him. He went over the details, making sure I understood everything, which honestly, I didn't. There were pages and pages of terms, things I had no context for, clauses about future windfalls, assets during the marriage, income streams, inheritance rights. But there it was, that one line that jumped out at me, the clause about lottery winnings, gambling proceeds, and windfall gains. It seemed almost absurd at the time. Any lottery winnings remain the separate property of the winner. It read. I laughed nervously. "This seems a bit excessive, don't you think?" I said, showing it to her, trying to make light of it. She didn't laugh. She just looked at me, waiting, as if she knew what was coming. I could feel her gaze, steady and unwavering, a reminder that we were about to set the terms for something I wasn't sure I fully understood. In the end, I agreed to sign it. I loved her, and I trusted her. I figured she was just being cautious, ensuring that her own financial stability remained intact. I didn't want to argue. We were about to get married, after all. Her mother's voice echoed in my head as I signed. "Smart planning," she had said. "You'll thank us later." But as I walked out of that office, a strange sense of unease settled in my chest. The words, "separate property," kept running through my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just agreed to a deal I didn't fully understand. The wedding day came, and we said our vows in front of our families and friends. The excitement was real, but so was that lingering doubt. A part of me felt like I was committing to something much more complicated than just love. But as time went on, life settled into its routine. Claire and I both kept our finances separate. I contributed what I could, but Claire made it clear that her condo and everything she had built before our marriage was off limits. It was fine, I thought. She was entitled to her space and I had my own. It was, at least, what I convinced myself was normal. Until the night I bought a lottery ticket on a whim. 3 years later, I was about to find out just how normal, or not, our marriage really was. Life after the wedding was. Fine, nothing more, nothing less. We settled into our routine, and I convinced myself that it was all normal, all manageable. We both kept our separate finances, and Claire's condo remained her domain. It wasn't like I had a claim to it anyway. She had it long before I came into the picture, and I respected that. In fact, I was relieved to have a place to call home that was comfortable, even if I couldn't change the curtains without asking. I knew Claire's independence was part of who she was, her work ethic, her drive. She was a successful pharmaceutical saleswoman, and I admired that about her. But there were moments that felt off. Little things that added up over time. Though I didn't fully realize it then. Claire kept her money separate, as she had made clear when we first moved in together. She'd set up a joint account for bills, but even then, I knew it was meant to be temporary. Every month I contributed my share, 40% of the bills, based on our income ratio. That felt fair enough, it made sense. But the rest of her finances were off limits. The condo was hers, the inheritance was hers, and any savings she had were carefully tucked away in an account I couldn't touch. It didn't bother me much at first. In fact, I thought it was pretty clear cut. She had built her life before me, and I respected that. But the more I settled into this life, the more I felt the subtle weight of it. Her world felt compartmentalized. The walls of her condo were adorned with photographs of her and her family, but none of us. None of me. I was grateful for the roof over my head, but I had no say in how things looked, how the space felt. I wasn't even allowed to rearrange a bookshelf without her approval. It wasn't that she didn't care about me, it was just that, in her world, everything had its place. She had her life, and I had mine. And I was fine with that, at least for a while. It wasn't until a few months into our marriage that I began to notice how separate everything really was. The more I gave, the more I realized I wasn't being invited into her life, in the way I thought I would be. But I was too in love, too blinded by the idea of the future we were supposed to build together. I convinced myself that everything would work itself out. After all, I didn't have much to offer beyond my job, and the modest savings I had managed to scrape together. Claire had her career, her condo, and her sense of independence. And that was fine by me. As the months passed, our marriage settled into a predictable rhythm. She'd go to work in the mornings, and I'd teach my history classes. We had dinner together most nights though, more often than not. Claire would have something to do for work after we ate. I didn't mind. It gave me time to grade papers, or sometimes just watch a game or read a book. We didn't need to fill every moment with conversation. Our silence had become comfortable. I should have been happy with that. Then about 4 months ago, something changed. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a quiet shift in my routine. I stopped at the gas station on my way home from work. Something I hadn't planned on. Just a quick stop for a scratch-off ticket, something I did maybe once or twice a year when I felt lucky. I scratched it off in the car, not expecting much. It was just a few bucks, or so I thought, but as I looked at the ticket again, my heart dropped. I had won. Not the full jackpot, but enough to change my life. A smaller drawing, but still a big win. $5.2 million before taxes. I sat there, staring at the numbers, my hands shaking. I double-checked the ticket. Then I triple-checked it. It didn't feel real. $5 million. My first thought wasn't about what I would do with the money. It was about how this was going to change everything. I should have been excited. I should have been jumping up and down, calling everyone I knew, but all I could think of was Claire. What would she say? What would this mean for us? It wasn't about the money. It was about what it meant for the life we'd built. Claire had insisted on the prenup, had been adamant about it. And now, this win, this unexpected stroke of luck, was about to challenge everything. When I got home, I told her. It was hard, almost impossible to get the words out, but I did. I won, I said. $5.2 million. I didn't know what I expected, maybe a hug, a celebration, a we're rich moment. But instead, she froze, her face went pale, then flushed with disbelief. You're joking, she said, looking at me as though she couldn't process it. No, I replied. I verified it. It's real. I'm gonna claim it tomorrow. Her expression shifted, confusion giving way to excitement. Oh my God, we're rich. She exclaimed, her voice full of wonder. We'll be fine. But then, just as quickly, something changed. Her face darkened. Wet, she said, pausing. What about the prenup? I hesitated, watching her face carefully. Actually, no, I said quietly. Remember the prenup. Any lottery winnings, gambling proceeds, or windfall gains acquired by either party remain separate property of the winner. Your lawyer was very specific about that. Her smile faded, replaced by a deep, sharp frown. She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, as if she couldn't quite comprehend what I was saying. Her gaze turned from disbelief to something else, anger. That was meant to protect my future, she said. That wasn't supposed to apply to you. I looked at her, trying to stay calm. The prenup doesn't differentiate. It says either party. That includes me. The clause you wrote, Claire, it applies to both of us, equally. She blinked, eyes wide, then quickly averted her gaze. As though she were trying to calculate what this meant. Her fingers twitched, and I could see her emotions shifting from shock to frustration. The tension in the room felt heavy, suffocating. It wasn't about the money, it never was, not for me. But for her, this was about something else, something deeper. Something that went far beyond the money in that lottery ticket. And I knew, in that moment, Things had changed forever. I couldn't stop staring at the ticket in my hand. $5.2 million. I checked the numbers again. Then I called the lottery office. I was shaking, my mind racing, but I needed to be sure. A simple $2 ticket had turned into something that could change everything. I never expected to win. In fact, I bought the ticket out of sheer impulse. Something I did once or twice a year when I was feeling lucky. And now, here I was, looking at the numbers that matched, and I had won. It didn't feel real. It still didn't feel real. I put the ticket down and just sat there, the weight of it all sinking in. $5 million. The first thing that popped into my mind was Claire. I had to tell her, but how? How would she react? I stared at the phone for what felt like an eternity, then decided I needed to tell her face to face. I couldn't just call her and say it. No, this was too big. Too important. I needed to see her face when I told her. I waited until dinner time. I could feel my nerves building up. I knew how she was. She always had a plan, a way to approach every situation. But this was different. This was beyond planning. This was a game changer. When Claire walked through the door that evening, her usual energy was there. Bright, focused. She smiled at me as she set her purse down on the counter. "How was your day?" she asked, moving toward the kitchen to start getting dinner ready. I could barely focus on her words. I felt like I was in a daze. I kept hearing the numbers in my head, $5.2 million. It felt like the world had shifted underneath me, and everything that was once simple had become complicated in an instant. "Claire, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice coming out more serious than I intended. She looked up, concern crossing her face. "What's wrong? You're acting weird." I stood up from the table, holding the ticket out in front of me. "I won." She blinked, not fully registering what I had said. "You what?" "I won. The lottery. $5.2 million. Her eyes went wide, and she froze. Then, slowly her face transformed. First confusion, then disbelief, and finally excitement. "Oh my God," she breathed. "You're serious?" I nodded, still feeling like I was dreaming. "I checked it 3 times, called the office. It's real." She gasped and rushed toward me. "This is incredible, Jack. We're rich. We'll be fine now. We can do everything we've ever wanted to do." Her excitement was contagious, but there was something in the back of my mind that kept nagging at me. Something about the way she was reacting. It was too quick, too enthusiastic. It didn't feel right. I had to remind myself that this was my money. Not ours, mine. "Claire, remember the prenup?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. Her smile faltered for just a second. "What do you mean?" "Of course, we'll share it. We're married. It's our money." I shook my head. "Slowly, no, the prenup, the clause about lottery winnings. Remember? You insisted on it." Her face dropped, and the excitement drained from her. She blinked a few times, and I could almost see the wheels turning in her head. "What? You're not serious. You're telling me that money is just yours. But we're married." I nodded. "That's what the prenup says. It's in black and white. Any lottery winnings or windfall gains remain the separate property of the winner. That's what you wanted." Claire's face turned white. She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, but no words came out at first. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "That was for me. I never thought you'd win." I swallowed hard. "You were the one who put that clause in, Claire. You told your lawyer you wanted protection if you ever won. I just didn't think it would apply to me." She stood there for a long moment, processing the words, the reality of what I was saying sinking in. Then her face twisted, a mixture of confusion and anger flooding her expression. "You're really doing this? After everything we've been through, you're gonna keep it all?" "I'm not keeping it all. I'm just following the terms you set," I replied, my voice steady. "You made it clear from the start. Separate property, separate finances." She looked away, breathing deeply, trying to steady herself. Then, in a voice filled with disbelief, she said, "This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought it would be just a precaution. Something to protect me." I didn't know how to respond. I just stood there, holding the ticket, watching as her world crumbled around her. Her anger slowly shifted to something else, something darker, something more dangerous. "You really think this is fair?" she demanded, her voice rising. "We've been together all this time, and now you want to keep everything to yourself." "I'm just following the rules we agreed on," I said quietly, my hands now clenched around the ticket. "You're the one who made those rules." Her face flushed with rage. "You can't be serious," she spat. "You were never supposed to win anything. This was supposed to protect me, not you." The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't about fairness, or love, or partnership. It was about control. And now, with my $5 million jackpot, I had forced her to confront the very thing she had tried to hide from. She wasn't protecting anything. She was making sure she was safe, while I was left with nothing. I could see it now, clearly, unmistakably. The prenup wasn't about fairness. It was about making sure she got what she wanted, while I got Nothing. And that was the truth I had ignored for too long. I'm going to claim the money tomorrow, I said, my voice cold now. I'm going to take what's mine. Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped toward me, her words venomous. We'll see about that, she said, her tone threatening. You'll regret this. I didn't respond. What more could I say? I had already made my decision. The rest of our lives, whatever that might look like now, had been decided long before I even realized it. The argument that followed that night was nothing short of explosive. Claire wasn't the type to show weakness or vulnerability. She prided herself on being in control. But as the reality of the situation sank in, I watched her unravel in a way I hadn't expected. The anger, the hurt, the frustration, all of it came crashing down in the space of a few moments. You're really going to do this? She repeated, her voice rising with each word. After everything we've been through. You're going to keep the money to yourself? Her face was flushed, her jaw clenched as she paced back and forth in the living room, unable to stay still for more than a few seconds. I was standing by the door, arms crossed, trying to stay calm. It was hard. But I knew I couldn't let her control this situation the way she always had. I had to hold my ground, no matter how much it hurt. You were the one who insisted on the prenup, I said, my voice quieter but steady. You were the one who wanted separate finances, separate property. I'm just following the terms you set. She stopped pacing and turned to face me. The look in her eyes was something I hadn't seen before. It was a mix of disbelief and betrayal, as if she couldn't understand how we had arrived at this point. I thought we were partners, she said, her voice wavering, but her words sharp. Partners don't hide things from each other. Partners don't make deals like this. This wasn't about protecting you, Jack. This was about making sure I didn't lose everything if something went wrong. Her words hit me hard, but I couldn't let myself show it. She had built this narrative in her mind, and now, I was the villain in her story. I'm not the one who changed the rules, Claire, I replied, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. You wrote that clause into the prenup. You're the one who made sure that if anything happened, it would be your money. You made it clear from the start that your assets were yours, and mine were mine. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. I never thought you'd actually win. I didn't think it would apply to you. This was supposed to protect me. You're not even supposed to be in this position. The words stung. I could feel the anger building inside me, but I bit it back. This wasn't about me getting even. This was about understanding what had been going on all along. She had always kept me at arm's length, just enough to keep me invested, but never enough to truly share everything. And now in this moment, everything was laid bare. I didn't ask for this, Claire. I didn't ask for the prenup. I didn't ask for the lottery ticket, but I'm not going to pretend that this isn't how it was supposed to be. I'm not the one who changed anything, I said, my voice a little stronger now. Her face twisted with frustration. You don't get it, do you? She snapped. I worked so hard for everything I have. Everything I've built I did on my own. And now, because you got lucky, you think you're entitled to it. To my life. You're the one who kept it all separate, Claire, I said, my anger finally starting to show. You were the one who wanted your life, your assets, your future all protected. I'm not the one who said, we can't have a shared life together. You stay over there, and I'll stay over here. You built a wall between us, and now you want me to tear it down and just hand over my winnings. Her face turned pale as she took a step back, her eyes searching mine. For a moment, it seemed like she didn't know what to say. And then the tears came. Not the kind of tears you expect from someone who's genuinely hurt, but the kind that come from frustration and rage. The kind of tears that signal the realization that you've lost control. How can you be so cold? She asked, her voice cracking. I thought we were in this together. I thought you loved me. I can't believe you're doing this. Her words felt like daggers. I had loved her. I had given everything I could. But now, all I saw was the truth. She had never seen me as an equal. I had always been a means to an end. Someone to share the bills. Someone to stand by her side when it suited her. But when it came to the things that mattered, her money, her security, she had made it clear where I stood. I do love you, I said softly, my voice steady now. But you've been protecting yourself from the start. And now, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just protecting what's mine. She let out a sound of frustration, shaking her head. You don't understand. You just don't get it. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to make sure we didn't lose everything. And now, I'm the one who's losing everything, I said. Everything we've built, everything we've done, has always been in your terms, Claire. And I've been okay with that. But this is where I draw the line. For a moment, she just stood there, tears streaming down her face. I could see the battle raging inside her. She wanted to be the victim, but deep down, she knew that she had orchestrated this entire situation. She had made sure she would come out on top, no matter what. I'm claiming the money, I said again, more firmly now. And I'm not sharing it. Not with you, not with anyone. She looked at me for a long moment, her chest rising and falling with every breath. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "You'll regret this. You'll see. You'll regret everything." And with that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, alone with the weight of the decision I had just made. I should have known it was coming. After I made it clear that I wasn't sharing the winnings, everything seemed to spiral. Claire's fury burned for a few days, then shifted. It went from anger to manipulation, and I was starting to feel the weight of her desperation. Her family got involved quickly, as I knew they would. It started with a phone call from her mother, just 2 days after our argument. "You need to fix this, Jack," she said, her voice dripping with authority. "Claire's a good woman, and you're tearing her apart over something so trivial." I gripped the phone tighter. "It's not trivial, Mrs. Evans. It's about the prenup, about what was agreed upon. You know that?" "Oh, I know," she replied, almost dismissively. "But it's not about the prenup anymore, is it? It's about fairness. It's about love." She paused. "You need to think about what this will do to your marriage." My blood boiled. I knew what she was trying to do. She was playing the guilt card, trying to twist this into something it wasn't. "This isn't about fairness. This is about respect. I'm not going to let Claire walk all over me, especially after everything she's done." Her tone shifted to one of more urgency. "You need to fix this, Jack. If you don't, your marriage is over. Your life will be a mess." I didn't say another word, I just hung up. That night, Claire called me, but I let it ring. Then she sent me a text. "I can't believe you're doing this. I'll make you regret it. You'll see." I wasn't sure if it was anger or fear, but I knew she was serious. The game had changed. Claire wasn't just upset anymore, she was scheming. 3 days later, I received an official letter from Claire's lawyer. She was demanding a revision of the prenup. The letter claimed the agreement was signed under duress, and that the clause about the lottery winnings was unconscionable. It was an attempt to invalidate everything. I read through it twice, trying to suppress my rage. This wasn't just a fight over money anymore. It was about power. Claire didn't want the prenup, she wanted control over everything. I couldn't believe it had escalated this far. I immediately called my lawyer. We set up a meeting for the next day. When I walked into his office, he was grinning like he had just won the lottery himself. "This is beautiful, Jack," he said. "Her lawyer is going to regret this." "You think they don't have a case?" I asked, still unsure of what was going on. "Not in the slightest." My lawyer replied confidently. "They're grasping at straws. She can't claim duress. There was no coercion. She had legal representation, you had legal representation. This prenup was signed freely, and the clauses are airtight. We'll take her to court if we have to." The relief that came over me in that moment was almost overwhelming. I wasn't the bad guy here, no matter what Claire or her family tried to make me believe. I had done everything by the book. The prenup wasn't a mistake, it was my protection. The days that followed felt like a blur. Claire sent me more texts pleading with me to reconsider. She alternated between begging for forgiveness and accusing me of betrayal. One of the texts read, "We built this life together. Don't let money tear us apart." I didn't respond. I didn't owe her an explanation. I wasn't the one who had thrown the first stone, she had. And now, I had to protect myself. But things took a darker turn when I got a call from my bank. They said Claire had tried to freeze my accounts, our joint account, the one we use for bills. They were about to follow through. Until they realized the prenup clearly stated that all assets were to remain separate, including any joint accounts. It had been a move straight out of a financial playbook. She was trying to claim that I was hiding assets. I was furious. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore, it was financial manipulation. Claire's lawyer was about to take things even further. I wasn't going to sit by and let her take what wasn't hers. The final straw came when I got a call from my school principal. He sounded concerned. "Jack, I need to give you a heads up. I received a call from Claire. She's trying to make a case that you're having a mental health crisis. She says the lottery win has made you erratic, and that you need to take a leave of absence." My stomach dropped. My thoughts were spinning. What was Claire trying to do? She wasn't just after money, she was trying to paint me as unstable, as someone who couldn't handle success. The irony was staggering. "She's what?" I said, my voice rising. "She's telling you I'm mentally unstable. She told me that you've been making poor decisions, and that the money has changed you. I just wanted you to know. We're not doing anything about it, but I thought you should be aware." I thanked him and hung up. This was beyond manipulation. Claire was trying to destroy my reputation, trying to twist this situation into something it wasn't. But the worst part, it wasn't over yet. The next day, I found an email chain she had left open on her computer. It was from before our wedding, from her conversation with the lawyer who had drafted the prenup. In it, she had explicitly stated that she wanted the clause about lottery winnings to protect her future. Her words, "If I ever win big, I don't want Jack to think he's entitled to it." She had written it into the prenup herself. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. His response: "This is gold, Jack. If she tries to argue the prenup is unconscionable, we've got the smoking gun." Her scheme was unraveling. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I wasn't going to let her tear everything apart. This was my fight now, and I was going to win. The court hearing was set for the following week. I'd never been to court before. I had never expected to be in a situation like this, fighting over money, fighting over my own rights. But here I was, in a battle that felt less about the money and more about something else. It was about respect. About the realization that everything Claire and I had built together had been tainted from the start. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with everything that had happened. I kept replaying the conversation I had with Claire, her words echoing in my ears. "You'll regret this. You'll see." She had been so sure of herself. But now, I wasn't the one feeling regret. I was standing my ground. The next morning, I put on the only suit I owned, a simple gray one that I'd worn to a few weddings and job interviews over the years. It didn't matter how I looked. This wasn't about appearances. This was about fighting for my future. I met with my lawyer an hour before the hearing. He was grinning, full of confidence. "This is going to be good," he said, his eyes gleaming. "We've got them cornered, Jack." I felt the weight of his confidence, but I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Claire was always the one who took control of situations. I'd let her dictate the terms of our marriage, the terms of our life together, and now I was fighting back. We walked into the courtroom, and I could feel the tension in the air. Claire was already there, sitting at the front with her mother and brother. Her lawyer was next to her, scribbling something in a notepad. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed, but she didn't say anything. I sat down next to my lawyer, trying to steady my breath. The judge entered, a middle-aged man with graying hair, and he took his seat. The courtroom went silent. The hearing began. Claire's lawyer stood up first, and his voice was smooth, calculated. "Your Honor, my client believes that the prenuptial agreement should be voided due to several factors. First, the clause regarding lottery winnings is unconscionable, and was never intended to apply in this situation." I could hear Claire's mother sigh behind me, her voice low as she murmured, "This isn't fair." The judge held up his hand to silence the room. "Did your client have legal representation when she signed this agreement?" The lawyer hesitated before answering. "Yes, Your Honor, but..." The judge interrupted again. "And did the respondent have legal representation as well?" "Yes, Your Honor." "So there was no coercion, no fraud, no duress in the signing of this agreement?" "No, Your Honor," the lawyer replied, now visibly flustered. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Then we are clear on that. So, the only issue here is whether the clause regarding lottery winnings is unconscionable." "That's correct, Your Honor," the lawyer said, growing more defensive. The judge paused, looking down at the prenup for a moment. Then he looked up and said, "Counselor, the language here is clear. The clause states that any lottery winnings, gambling proceeds, or windfall gains remain separate property of the winner. The wording is unambiguous. I fail to see how it could be considered unconscionable," the lawyer stammered, trying to regroup. "Your Honor, my client never intended for this clause to apply to the respondent. She only wanted to protect herself." "I see," the judge said, cutting him off again. "But your client specifically had this clause drafted to include both parties. And now it applies to both parties. I fail to see the legal grounds for voiding it." My heart was pounding, but I couldn't help the small smile that crept onto my face. This was going better than I had anticipated. Claire's lawyer didn't back down. "Though, Your Honor, the spirit of the agreement was to protect my client's assets, not to take advantage of an unexpected windfall." The judge's voice turned sharp. "That's not how contracts work, Counselor. The contract clearly states that the winnings belong to the winner, and that's what it is. If your client wanted to limit the scope of this agreement, she should have made that clear when it was written. But she didn't. And now, we are bound by the terms she agreed to." I couldn't stop myself from feeling a small surge of pride. I had stood my ground, and now it was paying off. Then my lawyer stood up, and everything shifted. He was calm, deliberate. "Your Honor," he began, "I'd like to submit several pieces of evidence into the record." He pulled out a file from his briefcase and handed it to the judge. The judge glanced through the papers, then looked back at us. "Proceed." My lawyer smiled slightly, pulling out the first piece of evidence, an email chain. This is an email sent by my client's wife before their marriage. In it, she specifically requested that the clause regarding lottery winnings be included to protect herself. She made it clear that, if she won anything, she didn't want her husband to think he was entitled to it. Claire's face went pale as she realized what had just been introduced. Her lawyer was silent. My lawyer continued, "We also have documentation showing that during the marriage, Claire insisted on keeping her finances entirely separate, even though they were married. She refused to share any of her income, savings or assets and insisted on keeping everything in separate accounts." He handed over more papers, including texts and bank records, showing how Claire had maintained financial separation. The judge reviewed everything with a steady gaze. Finally, my lawyer said, "And here is a statement from Claire's mother, confirming that the prenup was intended to protect Claire's assets, and that the clause regarding lottery winnings was included at her request." The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Claire's mother, sitting behind her, avoided eye contact with me. Claire's face was flushed, her anger barely contained. The judge turned to Claire. "Ma, it appears that you specifically requested this clause to protect yourself. Do you disagree with the evidence presented here?" Claire opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked at her lawyer, but even he seemed at a loss. "Let me remind you, ma'am," the judge said, his voice firm, "you insisted on these terms. You cannot now pick and choose which ones apply. The prenup is valid and enforceable." My heart was racing as I heard the words I'd been waiting for. The case was turning in my favor. I was winning. Her lawyer, now desperate, stood up one last time. "Your Honor, we'd like to request a continuance to better prepare our case." The judge didn't even hesitate. "Request denied. This prenup is valid, and this case is dismissed." I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. It was over. Claire had lost. And I had finally won. 2 days after the hearing, I received an unexpected call. It was from Claire's lawyer, and I knew this couldn't be good. He sounded like he was trying to mask his frustration with professional courtesy. "Jack, my client would like to propose a settlement," he began. "She's willing to drop all claims in exchange for $800,000. I stared at the phone in disbelief. $800,000? For what? She wants how much? I asked, my voice barely containing my shock. "Yes, $800,000, he repeated. "In exchange for dropping the lawsuit. It's a fair offer, given the circumstances. She wants to resolve this without dragging it out further." I couldn't help it. I laughed, but it wasn't out of amusement. It was out of sheer disbelief. "Are you kidding me? What does she think she's entitled to here? What are we even talking about? The prenup stands. She's entitled to nothing." There was a brief pause on the other end. I could tell the lawyer was doing his best to remain professional, but I could hear the frustration in his voice. "Jack, this is an opportunity to avoid further litigation. I think it's reasonable. The situation has escalated, and this could be a chance to settle." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of everything crashing down on me again. She's not entitled to anything, and I'm not paying her a penny. She wanted this prenup. She wanted all her assets protected. I'm not sharing a single dime of what's mine. "Well, that's your decision, of course," the lawyer said, a little more sternly now. "But I'm telling you, she's serious. If this doesn't get resolved, she's prepared to escalate this. She'll go to the media if she has to. The whole situation is getting out of hand." I stood up, my mind spinning. The audacity of Claire and her lawyer was beyond me. I had done everything by the book, and now they were trying to paint me as the villain. I wasn't going to back down, not now. "I'll pass on the settlement," I said, my voice cold. "Tell Claire I'm keeping the money. All of it. And she can't have a cent." I hung up without waiting for his reply, my thoughts swirling. The nerve of her. The desperation was so obvious now, it almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. But not quite. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and emails from her legal team. I ignored every single one. And still Claire didn't back off. She sent more texts begging, pleading, then growing angry. The last one I received was a combination of insults and apologies, all in one message. "You're destroying our marriage over money. I made a mistake. I can't believe you're doing this to me." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Then came a call from my bank. I hadn't expected this, but when I picked up the phone, I heard a voice I didn't recognize. "Mr. Hayes, this is your personal banker. I wanted to inform you that we received a request from your wife, claiming fraud on your joint account. She's trying to freeze the funds." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the settlement offer anymore. It wasn't just the legal battles. Now, Claire was actively trying to take money from me. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding or a difference of opinion. This was manipulation, pure and simple. "Fraud?" I asked, my voice low. "What do you mean?" "They've claimed that you're hiding assets, and that she needs emergency access to the account," the banker explained. "We've put a hold on it for now, but we wanted to make sure you were aware. Based on the prenup, we can't give her any access without your approval. But we felt it was important to alert you." My mind raced. This wasn't just legal games anymore. Claire was actively trying to undermine me, to paint me as the bad guy, to steal what wasn't hers. And it wasn't just about money, it was about power, control, and manipulating the narrative to her advantage. I didn't even know what to say. I hung up the phone, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to really feel the weight of the situation. I had been so focused on the logistics, the paperwork, the strategy, everything that was supposed to keep me grounded. But now, I had to face the truth. Claire had been playing a game all along. And I was just another pawn. I needed to move quickly. I needed to do something. I called my lawyer immediately. His response was swift. Get ready, this is about to get ugly. He wasn't wrong. Later that afternoon, I got a call from my school's principal. Jack, I wanted to give you a heads up. Claire called me earlier. She's trying to tell everyone that you're having a mental health crisis, that the lottery win has made you erratic, and that you need to take a leave of absence. I couldn't believe it. She was going this far. Trying to ruin my reputation at work, trying to paint me as unstable. I'm fine, I said, keeping my voice steady. Thanks for letting me know. I'll deal with it. But inside I was seething. This wasn't just a fight over money anymore. This was about everything I had built: my career, my reputation, my integrity. And Claire was willing to destroy it all. And then, as if on cue, I received a notification on my phone. It was an email, an old one from Claire's computer, left open by accident. I clicked on it, and my heart sank as I read through the contents. It was a chain of emails with her lawyer, discussing the prenup. She had explicitly told her lawyer to include the clause about lottery winnings, stating, "If I ever win big, I don't want Jack thinking he's entitled to any of it." I couldn't believe my eyes. All of her efforts to twist this situation into something it wasn't were suddenly laid bare. She had drafted the prenup with that clause in mind, not for her protection, but to keep everything for herself, regardless of what happened. I forwarded the email to my lawyer immediately, the satisfaction of knowing that I had a solid case now creeping into my chest. The tables had turned, and I wasn't about to let Claire play the victim anymore. Her lawyer was going to get an earful soon enough. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks after the hearing. The process was surprisingly straightforward, given everything that had happened. The prenup had made the division of assets clear, and with no shared assets beyond our joint account, there wasn't much left to fight over. I hadn't expected Claire to challenge the prenup in court, but once she did, everything shifted. She had pushed me to the brink, and when it was all over, there was no more pretending. The marriage that had once seemed so full of promise had been revealed for what it really was: an imbalance of control. It wasn't about partnership. It had been about her security, her independence, and me, the convenient placeholder in her life. The court ruling had been quick. The judge dismissed her claims and reaffirmed the prenup. Claire had no grounds to challenge it, and when it came to the division of our assets, the terms were already set. She didn't get a cent from the lottery winnings, and she didn't get anything beyond her own separate property. She tried to claim alimony though. The lawyer argued that I'd gotten used to a certain lifestyle, and now that Claire was no longer providing for me, I should be compensated. I hadn't lived beyond my means, and I certainly hadn't gotten used to anything that involved her financial support. The judge looked at the paperwork, at our financial histories, and laughed. "Mom, according to these records, you earned more than your husband. You kept your finances entirely separate. There's no lifestyle to speak of here." That was the end of that. 2 days later, Claire's lawyer contacted mine again. "My client is willing to settle," he said. "She'll drop all claims in exchange for $85,000. I couldn't help it. I laughed. "She wants how much?" I asked, almost in disbelief. "Yes, $85,000, the lawyer replied, sounding a little uncomfortable. "For the legal fees and harassment. She feels it's a fair amount. Tell her I'm willing to give her exactly what the prenup entitles her to," I said, not even trying to hide my sarcasm. "Nothing. Because that's what she's entitled to." I hung up without waiting for him to respond. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. I wasn't going to pay for her bad decisions, for the lies she'd spread, or for her attempts to manipulate me. I felt a strange sense of relief when I finally signed the papers. It was done. The weight I'd been carrying for so long had lifted and I was free. The hardest part was over. Claire didn't take it well. The next time I saw her, it wasn't in court. It was in the parking garage of the courthouse. She and her brother ambushed me as I was leaving, cornering me near my car. Claire's father was there too, standing off to the side, looking like he wasn't sure whose side he was on. "You really did this," Claire's brother said, his voice low but menacing. "You really screwed her over. After everything she's done for you." I took a step back, shaking my head in disbelief. "What exactly did she do for me, Daniel? Let me pay 40% of the bills while she kept everything else separate. Let me live in her condo, but I couldn't even hang up a picture. You think that's something to be grateful for? You're really going to be like this?" He spat. "She's your wife. You don't just leave someone like that. She wasn't my partner, I said, feeling the anger rise in my chest. I was just a pawn in her game. This isn't about me leaving her. This is about me getting out of something that was never real. I could see the rage building in his eyes. He stepped closer, and for a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. But then his father, Claire's dad, stepped forward, pulling him back. Let it go, Daniel, he muttered. It's over. Claire's brother glared at me but didn't say anything else. They all left, but not without Claire's mother calling me one last time, accusing me of ruining her daughter's life. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 2 days later, I got a call from my lawyer. Jack, he said, his voice almost too cheery. I have some interesting news. Your ex-wife's brother got caught keying your car. He was caught on camera doing it. I could feel the blood drain from my face. You've got to be kidding me. Nope. Your security footage shows him doing it. I've already filed a police report, and he's been arrested. It was unbelievable. Claire's brother had actually damaged my car in retaliation, and now he was facing criminal charges. The next few days were a whirlwind. Claire tried to call me, pleading for me to drop the charges. He made a mistake, she cried over the phone. Please, Jack, don't do this to him. He'll lose his job. Please just let it go. I didn't respond. The irony of it all was too much. She had tried to ruin my life, tried to claim I was mentally unstable, tried to steal my money. And now, she wanted me to feel sorry for her brother, because he'd vandalized my property. No, I said firmly when I finally did speak. He made a choice. And now he has to face the consequences. Just like I did. The next few weeks were tense, but eventually, I heard that Claire's brother had pleaded guilty to vandalism. He was sentenced to community service and had to pay restitution for the damage to my car. He also lost his job, thanks to his criminal record. I had no sympathy. He had done this to himself. The whole family was falling apart, and it wasn't my fault. Claire's mother called me one last time, furious that I hadn't dropped the charges. You ruined his life, she screamed into the phone. I didn't yell back, I just said calmly, no, he ruined his own life. He made a choice, and now he has to deal with it. I hung up, and that was the last time I heard from her or anyone in her family. In the end, it wasn't about the money. It was about something much more important: freedom. The kind of freedom you get when you stop letting someone else control your life. The kind of freedom that comes when you realize you don't have to stay in a relationship that's built on lies, manipulation, and broken promises. I bought a house shortly after the divorce was finalized. It was modest, 3 bedrooms, a nice yard, and paid for in full with the money I had left. I finally felt like I had a place that was truly mine, free from anyone's expectations. I didn't need Claire's money or her approval. I didn't need anyone's approval. I spent the next few months doing what I should have been doing all along, living my life. I started a scholarship fund for low-income students, using $500 of my winnings to start it off. It felt good to do something positive with the money that had caused so much chaos. As for Claire, her life fell apart after the divorce. Her friends distanced themselves from her, and even her family had started to see her for who she really was. Her father called me one day, offering a quiet apology. He admitted that he hadn't known how bad things had gotten with her. He told me that after everything he had seen, he was filing for divorce himself. He had seen how controlling and selfish she had been. It felt strange, but in a way, I was glad to hear it. It was like a small victory for me, not just for the money or the divorce, but for finally seeing the truth. Claire sent me one last text, a few weeks later. I hope you're happy alone with your money. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I was happy. I was finally living on my own terms, and that was all that mattered. I had reclaimed my freedom, my dignity, and my life. And that was worth more than any lottery win.